Okay, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Here.
Councilmember Battaglia.
Here.
Mayor LaBrus.
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Notice having been published according to law with a copy on file in the city clerk's office and a copy posted on the bulletin board in City Hall.
Okay, would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
To the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go right into the agenda.
Okay, this is the Committee of the Whole agenda for Monday, November 9th, 2020. Tonight, we have a brief presentation by Suburban Engineering, but before I make that introduction, I'd like Jim Mangan to open the presentation. Jim?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Tonight's update, we're going to be talking about sewer separation. But in addition to sewer separation, what we wanted to do was kind of expand it into the relationship between the sewer separation that we're doing and flooding that goes on throughout the city. A lot of the flooding that occurs in Hackensack, and there's flooding all over the city for a number of different reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the sewer systems are interconnected. So one of the things we want to explain is the interconnectivity between the various systems. Just by way of background, the city has a CSO permit, a combined sewer overflow permit. We've discussed that in the past. The permit requires us to not necessarily separate our sewers, but to reduce the number of overflow events. And last month, or on September 30th, we filed our long-term control plan, which Arcadis Engineering prepared to do just that. But what we wanted to explain was how we're going beyond what's required for the regular sewer separation, and we're taking it a step further to address flooding throughout the city. And what we're doing along those lines is we're using the financing tools that are available for sewer separation, and we're using that also to address flooding throughout the Hackensack. The iBank has the best terms possible, and that's how we're able to afford what it is that we're doing between sewer separation work and the controlling of flooding. So what today's update is going to talk about is the sewer separation that's going on Main Street and how that connects to the Clay Street area. Now, the Clay Street area, remember, it's not just Clay Street. You know, it's the area bounded by roughly from Main Street up to First, roughly from the railroad tracks to about Passaic Avenue. It includes Clay Street, Berry Street, Berdan Place, Stanley Place, Railroad Avenue, all of those streets in that whole area. And they've been particularly hit with flooding. The flooding that occurs there isn't necessarily stormwater that's overflowing, but it's sanitary waste that's overflowing. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss what we're doing on Main Street and how that relates to the Clay Street area. And if you could, just during the presentation that Suburban's giving, just pay particular attention to the Camden Street culvert, because while there's no one single solution to flooding in Hackensack, I wish there was, but nothing about Hackensack is easy. But the Camden Street culvert, we'll be explaining how that's going to do a lot to alleviate flooding right now in Main Street, and eventually it'll be connected to the separated sewer in Clay Street, and it'll provide relief there. Once those two things happen, that's going to take the pressure off of the Court Street system, which in turn will then help, won't solve, but it'll help the flooding that goes on in Green Street, okay? Now, like I said, flooding is a big problem in Hackensack. Back in 2018, It was one of the financial goals that we had was to create a comprehensive long-term financial plan to address flooding. At that time, we were working with Arcadis Engineering and Boswell Engineering, and we had just started working with Suburban Engineering. And what Suburban brings to the mix is not just the fact that they're excellent engineers, they are, but they've also got an intimate knowledge of how the iBank works and how we can take advantage of the funding mechanisms that are available to us. You know, Eleni Giannakopoulos, who's going to speak in a minute, particularly very good at the finances of the iBank. In fact, what Eleni does is she can speak engineering to the DEP people, and then in the next breath speak finance to the iBank people. That's helped us a lot. Okay, so during the presentation that both Eleni and Aaron Albright from Suburban are going to be giving, just remember that all of the improvements that we're talking about, all of the infrastructure investment that we have done and that we're continuing to do is all within our existing debt service budget. Okay, it's important to remember that we made that promise back in 2015 that we would not raise taxes for infrastructure improvement, and we're continuing to fulfill that promise. Okay, so with having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Eleni and Aaron from Suburban, okay, to give us an update.
Thank you, Jim.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so let's see if I can share the right screen. I now have privileges to share. Can you see my cover page?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
Okay, so thank you for giving us the few minutes today to discuss the status update of principal forgiveness from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. It's primarily the principal forgiveness is available for combined sewer systems that are focusing on combined sewer overflow abatement, capital improvements. So this presentation is focused on the combined sewer system sections of the city. And again, my name is Eleni Giannakopoulos. I presented before you a year or so ago. And I'm also presenting with my colleague, Aaron Abline, who is the project manager on your localized sewer separation efforts. The presentation outline that we're going over today, and we do have limited time, so I need to speak a little fast. We're going to talk about the NJPD's permit requirements, and that is your New Jersey Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. It does exactly that. It outlines how we can reduce the pollution discharge and eliminate it in the state of New Jersey. We're going to talk about the city's obligations, and we're also going to talk about the benefit of proactive planning and principal forgiveness grants. We are going to dive into a little bit of an outline of what Jim already had spoken about in his prologue. The CSO long-term control plan. We have a combined sewer system in the city of Hackensack. Not in the entire city is a combined sewer system, but there's sections of the city that are still operating under a combined sewer system. That combined sewer system is reaching a screening facility and a regulating station that tries to regulate the overflows of that combined sewer system to enter the river. The long-term control plan identifies cost-effective infrastructure improvements or alternatives to reduce the pollution from combined sewer overflow discharge. So you can imagine, and I don't have to tell you, that when you do have a combined sewer system, inevitably when it overflows into the river, there's matter that enters the river that is obviously it's a health hazard, it's a safety hazard and a health hazard for the river. Step one of the CSO long-term control plan requirements, Arcadis is assisting the city to complete those requirements. Step one for them was to do a system characterization report, baseline compliance, public participation process, all of which you have been well in tune of. Step two was the development of the evaluation of alternatives report, also abbreviated as the DEAR report. That deadline was July of last year. And the last deadline was the selection and implementation of alternatives report that was originally due June 30th of this year, but due to COVID, it was extended to October 1st. So obviously the city is in good standing with their CSO permit requirements, and everything is aligned with the necessary milestones and deadlines. Part of the Najipity's permit requirements is setting two main goals for combined sewer systems. One is to decrease the combined sewer overflow occurrences to 4 a year. For a year. The second goal is to achieve 85% capture. And I will try not to dive too much into the technical details of that. However, when we say 85% capture, it is the overflow volume ratio with a total wet weather capture volume. So we have so much rainfall during a given year, and we have so much developed property that no longer can absorb that rainfall. We need to be able to capture 85% of that ratio as part of this goal. The city's obligations in achieving those goals is to evaluate the following alternatives. Green infrastructure. It's infrastructure that is environmentally friendly in a way, but the reason why they name it green infrastructure is because it's able to treat stormwater runoff on site. It does not rely on piping networks that will discharge this stormwater runoff to the river. So green infrastructure is something that the state of New Jersey is very, very, very strongly advocating for, because that would also help alleviate the rising sea levels and the whole climate change that we are witnessing. Sewer separation is another alternative, infiltration, inflow control, end of pipe treatment at the outfalls, and storage. Now, the city of Hackensack sewer system areas, if you can see my cursor, these are the city limits of the city of Hackensack. And as you can see, throughout the city limits that we have shown here, and obviously the river is the east side, the areas that are not highlighted in orange or in green are already separated sections of the city. That's not to say that there's not flooding in those areas, but they're already separated. The stormwater infrastructure in those sections of the city are connected to a stormwater conveyance system that finds its way to an outfall directly to the river. Any sanitary sewer that is conveyed through those areas of the city is going directly to Bergen County Utility Authority, BCUA, and it's set for treatment. The areas that are highlighted in orange and in green are the two primary sections, as you are very well aware, that are still operating under a combined sewer system. The north side of the system is the Anderson Street drainage area, and it's identified because the drainage, the screening facility along this side is along Anderson Street, hence the term Anderson drainage area on the north side. The maximum flow of this area captures is 4.9 million gallons a day. Currently, we have 42 overflow events documented for 2020. Now, don't forget the primary goal is that we reduce our overflows to 4 occurrences per year for the entire city of Hackensack limits. Anderson represents 52 overflows alone up until now. The southern section of the combined sewer system is known as the Court Street drainage area. And to Jim's point, it goes beyond the name of Court Street. It is the entirety of the southern region of the city that is pretty much capturing 6.5 million gallons a day, and currently is reporting 42 overflow events for 2020. Now, the objective of the long-term control plan is to minimize the combined sewer overflows that are being reported at the screening facilities. It is not intended to address flood mitigation. Its main purpose is to look at the current pipe network in the combined sewer system and how to further alleviate the overflows. However, addressing flooding and localized sewer separation efforts will address two things. One is adding additional storage in the culverts that we are installing throughout the city in those specific areas. And it's also able to slow down the process by storing and delaying any discharge that makes it to the river without having it in a combined sewer system. I will now introduce Aaron Abline to discuss the technical specifics of how we are outlining how we have come this far with sewer separation efforts, what we have done in 2020, and what we will be doing in the future years to capture principal forgiveness. It made sense to discuss the technical backing of how we are outlining these projects to then come back and discuss the financial aspect and benefit to the city, which is also important, and understanding the reason why the projects are outlined the way that they are.
Thanks,
So,
Eleni.
Yep.
My name is Erin Abline. Like Eleni stated, I'm the project manager for Suburban for the city's current sewer separation projects. In order to understand the schedule alignment of these projects, I want to go through a high altitude view approach on what we're doing. Most of the city's flooding occurs within the Court Street drainage area, with two major areas that were previously described by your CFO really appropriately and are identified by the Clay Street drainage area and the Green Street drainage area. Referring to the shown thermograph, these colors indicate elevations, starting with red being 0 at the river, and we go all the way up to the purple, which is near elevation 100, 120 up by Summit. This map shows the low-lying areas in red. You could see near Green Street, the lowest elevation there is around elevation 6, and Clay Street, the lowest elevation there is around elevation 12. Another important thing that this map shows is one of the largest issues of this drainage area, and that's how the existing combined sewer is laid out. So that's what's shown in black here with the arrows. The main interceptor runs parallel to the river, and all the stormwater flow passes through Green Street and the lowest point within the Court Street drainage area. So all this drainage area, all this stormwater has to flow through this area in a single interceptor, and this results in frequent surcharge conditions. So to address this flooding, we need to continue efforts like we've seen on Main Street and cut off drainage area that comes towards Green Street. This infrastructure needs to be installed and run perpendicular to the river instead of parallel like you see right now. The next few slides, we're going to talk about the progress that we've made so far towards this goal and how it connects to our 2-year look ahead. So first is the Main Street work that was performed prior to our involvement. The Main Street separation started with 2 projects designed by Boswell Engineering, which you see on this map in yellow. The first was the separation efforts that are contributory to the outfalls behind White Manna. This infrastructure was designed to accommodate about 10 acres of area of separation, and it covers Main Street and State Street from Berry to Passaic. The second was the separation efforts within the area of the city's TAP grant, or streetscape, along Main Street from Essex to Atlantic, which was designed to accommodate about 4 acres of separation and provide the conduits across Main Street prior to streetscaping. Next are the contracts that Suburban designed. We credit the city for recognizing that Main Street played such a critical role in sewer separation and flood alleviation within the Court Street drainage area. You performed your due diligence prior to the implementation of numerous grants and loans for the Main Street two-way conversion and streetscape. This string of projects together, so separation and streetscapes, represent $3 million of grants received by the city, which is substantial. So Suburban was authorized to perform these analyses, and we've worked over the last year to implement a program with 2 separate contracts, which are all shown in red. The first contract, labeled as Contract A, addressed the area between Atlantic and Mercer Street. This area is about 7.5 acres, and it's contributory to an existing stormwater system and outfall through the record site. The second contract, labeled as Contract B, covers a much larger area of about 26 acres and is delineated by Mercer to Berry Street and from the east to west, State Street to Moore Street. This contract's drainage area is contributory to a large culvert that is currently being installed on Camden Street. A culvert is loosely defined as a significant drain under a road or railroad. The culvert installed within Camden, and shown here just for scale, you could see with a person standing next to it, is used for both conveyance and inline storage. So during storm events, there's going to be water that's stored here, not in your low-lying areas. This culvert's designed to accommodate the 25-year storm from the Main Street drainage area, which again was shown in red, and the upstream Clay Street drainage area, which is what I'm going to talk about. So again, and now you could see on this map, you're going to see the blue area as well. So if you look at the left side, you see the red area and the blue area. The Camden culvert was designed to take all of this area. You're also going to see a dashed red line and a magenta line. Currently, the culvert in Camden ties into an existing stormwater system right at the intersection of River Street. The existing piping and outfall is appropriately sized for the drainage area collected by the culvert at this time, today. Forward planning to proceed with the connection of the upstream drainage area, Clay Street, will require for the construction of both of these segments. And Eleni's going to talk about some finance opportunities for them. So I just wanted to set the seed there. But let's talk about this blue area we see. So recalling what I discussed earlier, all of these separation efforts contribute towards the alleviation of the overall drainage area's flooding. So Green Street, Clay Street, all of these are helping. But you could see where Eleni's pointing now, there's this red low-lying area near Clay Street. So what we're proposing to do is to extend the Camden Street culvert up into this drainage area and collect about another 30 acres that will then be contributory to the culvert through Foschini Park. I think it's important to note that the work done to date, so today, if you look out here, we've separated about 10%, the city has separated about 10% of the stormwater that goes, that is contributory to the combined system within the Court Street drainage area. And that's substantial. That's helping Green Street today. That's helping Clay Street today. It's helping all your areas of surcharge already. So Eleni, if you could just go back one more, I just want to highlight why Clay Street is, why Clay Street's an issue and why it makes sense that it's the next area. There's two rails that intersect. Yep, Eleni's showing you now. And this creates a bowl, if you would, where this water that you see, these low-lying areas in red, they have no way to discharge except for added infrastructure. So again, that's about 30 additional acres that will go through the Camden culvert. And I credit the city for having the foresight to perform this due diligence and these analyses to set this up to grab this additional area. So after the installation of this area for the 25-year storm will be dry, which is and will also alleviate all of that area going to Green Street. So now I want to quickly talk about Green Street. We've already started addressing Green Street by separating, right? That's what I've been saying. And now these areas will no longer come through this low point. What we've done is we've modified this thermograph so you could see even more how low Green Street is. So if you look down in Green Street in those red areas, Green Street, South Newman, all of that, and then you go towards the river, you see that it becomes yellow again. Green Street also has no way to evacuate except for adding infrastructure. So what we're proposing to do is we head up to Clay Street, we separate an additional 30 acres, and then for your fiscal year 2022 project, we propose large infrastructure that will drain Green Street directly to the river. We want to disconnect it from the combined sewer and drain the stormwater directly to the river. Now this project is going to likely require a property acquisition due to the elevations. And again, elevation 6 is where Green Street's at, and the river, you know, if we say elevation 0, but you could see the 100-year flood elevation is at elevation 8. So we're going to need a pump station, and we'll likely need a property acquisition near the river to accommodate that. That's what we're analyzing now. So therefore, we recommend we continue the design of Green Street, focus on this property acquisition and this culvert extension to drain Green Street, again, for the 25-year storm, did not have any surcharge. But this, due to the long lead time in the property acquisition, we're recommending for the state fiscal year 2022 project.
So switching gears to the finances of this, I wanted to just introduce you to, well, you are fully aware of the New Jersey Water Bank Financing Program, particularly the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. I just wanted to make sure everybody on the council is aware of what that acronym is when we say CWSRF. And clean water is actually the water that needs to be cleaned. Safe drinking water is safe drinking water. So when we say clean water, it is actually for sanitary and stormwater projects. It is a federal fund source for the Federal Clean Water Act, and it's facilitated through the DEP and financed also through the iBank, the infrastructure bank. The Main Street sewer separation effort started within the city of Hackensack 5-7 years ago. The first principal forgiveness project that the city received was the one that we discussed earlier along Main Street that was previously designed by Boswell. So state fiscal year 14, the city received $1 million of principal forgiveness for these project efforts. And the bond ordinance that appropriated funds for that was introduced and adopted in 2014. Now, since then, and through state fiscal year 2020, I just wanted to underline that the state fiscal year operates July 1st through June 30th, not a calendar year that we're dealing with January through December. The balance of the books that Jim is doing, the reappropriation of funds, the transfers of funds, the year-end budgets end in December for the city and many municipalities in the state of New Jersey. However, the state fiscal year operates July 1st through June 30th. The reason I say this is because we are already 3 months into the state fiscal year 21. So when I want to make this distinction is when I discuss state fiscal year 2020 for Main Street. That was essentially the project that we have constructed and are currently completing along Main Street is state fiscal year 2020. And the cutoff for that was June 30th of this year. For CSO abatement, the program was offering $1 million of principal forgiveness, and Main Street is aligned with those timelines and regulatory requirements, and we are already in the program receiving reimbursements for Main Street sewer separation. And we'll attest to that. We received the first wire transfer just a few days ago. For state fiscal year 20, we have a total of $8 million appropriated for the sewer separation along Main Street. The reason I say that is because when we designed the project, we had anticipated that the stretch from Atlantic to Atlantic to Mercer and from Mercer to Berry would be in the tune of $8 million. And that includes the culverts that we have added along Demarest and along Camden. Now, in doing this and going out to bid during COVID, if you recall, we worked through the first virtual bid openings or the first virtual bid solicitations. We had our bid opening in the parking lot with COVID. And it really paid off because the contractors were very competitive in their pricing, and we were able to secure record low pricing for our project. So even though we appropriated $8 million for just the stretch that we have highlighted here in red, we're in a position where the bids that we were assuming it was going to be $4.2 million just for contract B alone. And again, contract B is the one that I'm showing you here. Contract B, our engineer's cost estimate was $4.2 million, and it is tiny print right now because I wanted to give you a zoom out view of 5 bids that were received that spanned across $2.5 million to $4.1 million. 4.1 keeps our estimate honest that is something that we would anticipate to see, but due to COVID, the numbers came in lower and lower and lower. The biggest ticket item that we had in contract B was that culvert that Aaron mentioned along Camden. It took a lot of planning and hydraulic analysis to identify what size culvert we would need to be able to facilitate the proper storage and conveyance of stormwater that would be able to capture more from upstream locations. Our engineer's estimate was $3,500 a linear foot. The apparent low bidder had $700 a linear foot. That is a significant price savings. And every other contractor that came in, their prices varied tremendously across the board, as much as $2,600 a linear foot. So if we have a apparent low bidder going at $2.5 million, it behooves the city to take advantage of the local public contracts law maximum amount that we could use to get as much of this culvert at that price. So at 20% of the apparent low bidder amount is the revised contract amount could go as high as $3 million, leaving us with $500,000 more to do as much of this culvert as we can downstream from Main Street. So what you will see here, and the reason for this whole presentation is to also prepare you on change orders that you will see and proposals that you will see for design and execution of construction. We are going to recommend to the city a change order for new prints to extend the price, the culvert, as much as possible as allowable by the local public contracts law, so that we can have as much of that extended with that unique low price. We're also going to present you a proposal for a third contract that would then increase the size of the culvert to the river and increase the existing outfall to be able to facilitate all of the additional stormwater it's going to receive. just to put your minds at ease, the total appropriation is $8 million for these efforts. Our current total of costs to date is $6.2 million, and that includes the increase of contract B to extend the culvert as much as possible. We have $1.7 million available to us to maximize the appropriation and bring the culvert all the way to the river in the adequate size that it needs to be. So the balance is pretty much adding up to the full $8 million, not forgetting that we're getting $1 million of principal forgiveness, and the total project costs will be $7 million. And finally, the Main Street sewer separation efforts along James Clay and Court is what's better outlined for state fiscal year 21. Now the program has improved and is allowing $2 million of principal forgiveness for projects that are for sewer separation efforts. And it's essentially paying for 50% of the total project costs to a maximum of $2 million principal forgiveness. So when we're looking at that for sewer separation efforts, it is very important that we look at a project that at a minimum is a $4 million project. So CSO sewer shed, gray and green infrastructure, $2 million principal forgiveness maximum. So that is what we're looking to address. And as Aaron pointed out, state fiscal year 21 will be this one upstream of what we were discussing earlier, and just closing the loop on having this whole system addressed appropriately. Final word is that it is a regulatory requirement that we prove that going through the program is indeed the most cost-effective manner of addressing these problems and these issues. And through the WISE calculator and putting in the comparative funding and financing ability from the city, if they were to go through a traditional bond market rate, we would be looking at, for a $7 million, for an $8 million project, you're going to be looking at $11 million worth of financing costs if you went through the traditional bond market, where it's only $9.5 million going through the iBank. It really represents significant savings to the city going through this program, and notwithstanding an additional $2 million of principal forgiveness as well. And that concludes our presentation. We wanted to cover a lot of groundwork here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Jim. He knows all about this. Obviously, it's a pleasure working with you, and it's very, very rewarding to see the city succeed through this program, and small victories along the way, and we feel very, very happy on the progress of these projects so far.
Thank you, Eleni, and thank you, Aaron. If there are no questions, I also have a short presentation from Danielle De Laurentiis in reference to Demarest Place Community Vision Plan. Are you on with us, Danielle?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm actually going to defer to Elliot Benman. So I'll just briefly say that I'm Danielle De Laurentiis. I'm the Associate Director at the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation. And we worked with the city and Together North Jersey on a technical assistance grant to develop more of our project called Activating Demarest Place. So I'll just turn it over to Elliot. He has a short presentation, and then I'll come back on after.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Danielle. And I believe I can share my screen. We have a few slides that we'd like to share with you. So you should be seeing a PowerPoint presentation. So good evening, everyone. My name's Elliot Benman. I'm with the Voorhees Transportation Center, Rutgers University, which is a partner in the Together North Jersey initiative. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present on the Demarest Place Community Vision Plan, which we worked on with the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation and the city from December of last year to July of this year, with the plan making recommendations for turning Demarest Place into a vibrant public space activated through the arts. And this builds on efforts going back 3 years, 3 years of previous efforts by the Community Foundation, Main Street Business Alliance, Hackensack Creative Arts Team, the Community Foundation's Artsbergen initiative to do public engagement, introduce music and art to the Main Street area, and put up the mural that is currently in Demers Place. So Together North Jersey is a coalition of partners that are working to promote sustainable development in the 13-county region. The initiative is funded by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. And one of the ways we foster sustainable development is through our local technical assistance program, through which the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers provides technical assistance services to support local initiatives that advance the vision of the TNJ plan. And this is a competitive program. Only 2 communities are assisted every year. And Hackensack was awarded assistance due to the past work done around Demers Place, as well as the city's success in downtown redevelopment and fostering transit-oriented development. So I just wanted to situate Demers Place within the downtown. So there are 2 segments, and we've been calling the western segment Demers West, and it's highlighted in pink here. And there's Demers East highlighted in orange. And each of these connects a transportation facility to the Main Street. So we saw potential here for creating inviting gateways into the Main Street, into the shopping and dining. But we also see it as one cohesive public space in a larger arts activated downtown, and that connects the Hackensack bus terminal to the Hackensack Performing Arts Center. And it is a rapidly changing place with downtown redevelopment. A lot of progress seen there, bringing in new residential units and commercial space, mixed use buildings. So a very important point throughout this effort was to ensure that Demers Place is an inclusive space that's inclusive of the existing community, while also being an amenity to visitors and to the new residents coming into the downtown. So this is just an image of Demers East looking toward the bus terminal, the NJ Transit bus terminal. And this is how the Demers West currently looks, or at least a few months ago, looking towards the municipal parking garage. So we wanted to create, working with our partners in Hackensack, we wanted to develop a community-driven plan for Demers Place. So we reached out to hundreds of residents, visitors, business owners, employees working in the downtown through intercept surveys, questionnaires, at HackPack, at the Bergen Community College. We were also going to do on-street outreach, but then COVID-19 hit and we moved things online, but we did have a really terrific virtual workshop in partnership with the Hackensack Creative Arts Team, where we spoke with members of the local arts community, and they offered up their ideas for Demers Place. We also held discussions with the Main Street Business Alliance, as well as developers in the area, to see what their priorities were. So from that outreach, we distilled 4 themes that we thought should inform any future designs or activation of Demers Place. So first and foremost, we heard that it should be a space of inclusivity, that it should be a place that expresses the rich diversity, cultural diversity of the Hackensack population. It should be a community space. We heard that it should be activated through the arts, and it should be, again, a space of cultural expression. Shopping and dining was another major theme. So what we heard was that the downtown is currently largely a 9-to-5 place, with people leaving the downtown directly after work or after catching a show at the HackPack. So Demarest Place is an opportunity to foster more of a social vibrant scene and nightlife in downtown Hackensack. And then finally, green space was another thing that was brought up a lot. So people would like to see that as an amenity, but also as an expression of the community's commitment to environmental sustainability. So we took those ideas, those themes, and we translated it into conceptual designs that can serve as a starting point for more specific designs to be developed, as implementation advances. So we worked with a student, graduate student in urban design at Rutgers University to develop a couple conceptual designs and renderings. And the goal here was to preserve Demarest Place as a pedestrian thoroughfare for transit riders and so forth, but also to serve as a community space that serves as a backdrop for pop-up art installations and pop-up events and that sort of thing. Events where people can come and linger for a little bit, participate, watch, and move on. So there you can see the project report for more information, but just a couple of features included in this example design here, which is of Demarest East. We have planter benches, temporary seating, string lights, wayfinding signage, green infrastructure, artistic crosswalks to really activate it through the arts. So this is a rendering of what Demarest Place could look like if some of these recommendations were to be implemented. So this is showing Demarest East looking toward the bus terminal again. And this is Demarest West, again, an example conceptual design of what it could look like with those recommendations implemented as a community space. People are hanging out. And the project report makes many recommendations for activities that could take place in the space. You can see examples here, but again, these would be largely pop-up stage, pop-up art installations, games, sidewalk art, local vendors. And I'd just like to note that amid COVID-19, communities are really discovering the power of public spaces, vibrant public spaces, as they work to foster safe community life. So Demarest Place is really an important asset in that regard. And a lot of the recommended activities you'll find in the report can be carried out safely in present time amid COVID. So that's a very brief overview of the work that we did over about 6 months or so. And the entire report can be found both on the TNJ website as well as the City of Hackensack website. And I guess I'd like to conclude just by saying that we had a terrific experience working with the Northern New Jersey Community Foundation and the redevelopment in the City of Hackensack, putting this together. And we really hope that some of our recommendations get advanced toward implementation. So at this point, I think, Danielle, did you have anything to add to that in terms of next steps?
Yes, thank you, Elliot. I want to thank you on behalf of the foundation and your team at Together North Jersey for really helping us take the past 3 years of work doing community engagement and the arts to revitalize Demarest to the next level. So thank you. So the next step in the project is to develop an architectural plan based on the community input that was gathered and the TNJ report and its recommendations. So to do this, the foundation and the city have applied this past summer for a National Endowment for the Arts, Our Town grant. So the grant will fund an architectural plan designed by DMR for the full Demarest corridor running from the bus terminal to the Hackpack. And the plan will incorporate, as Elliot mentioned, landscaping design, seating, lighting, as well as public art elements. And the arts will really serve to make the path an attractive, cohesive design, as well as engage and connect the new residents that are coming into the city while reflecting the character and the culture of the existing residents. So
Okay.
just a couple more things, just one more minute. So since 2015, the foundation has been working with the city and the Main Street Business Alliance to do this work called creative placemaking. And simply, it's a community-driven approach to use the arts to make more vibrant, prosperous places. So given all the new development that's happening and the influx of residents coming in, we really see this as a critical time to incorporate arts and culture into public gathering spaces like Demarest Place. So you're not only engaging the new residents, but you're also preserving the cultural and the flavor and the history of the existing residents. And we also see this project and the creative placemaking process as a model that can be used to revitalize and build community in other areas of the city and beyond. So we look forward to getting this Our Town grant and seeing the Demarest project come to fruition, and ultimately see Hackensack become a leader in creative placemaking for not only Bergen County, but the state. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
If there are no questions, I have a pretty full agenda. I still got to sneak in here before we run out of time.
Yeah, let's move.
Next on the list is the administrative search warrant ordinance, which is before you tonight, which basically has been put together through the cooperation of our municipal prosecutor and Steve, primarily to address property maintenance issues and facilities or addresses of property that need to be inspected, that obviously the property owner, if you schedule it through the construction office, they know they're coming, they clean it up, and we kind of waste our time doing this. With the search warrant ability, we could show up on scene unannounced and address the conditions or housing issues that are facing, which usually challenge police, our health department, and obviously community issues, and everything from homeless people to transient also. So
may I, City Manager, for a moment?
Sure.
I just want to point out, you know, right now the city does have the ability to go to the municipal court and obtain an administrative search warrant. It is within our authority. The ordinance is more designed, I would say, to, you know, add additional enforcement mechanisms by stating that a failure to cooperate with a validly issued search warrant, because keep in mind, it has to be issued by a judge and we have to show probable cause for the reason why we need the search warrant. And none of that changes. That's all established by the general law. But it just gives us an avenue to say, look, you know, failure to comply with a properly issued judicial administrative search warrant, you know, is to be considered an ordinance violation, and can be punished as such. So a number of municipalities in New Jersey have these provisions, and we're going to try and use it as another tool because we have been having problems getting into homes. And under the Fourth Amendment, even if it's only an administrative code violation, you cannot enter into someone's private property absent certain exceptions for emergent health and safety matters and, you know, certain other things without a duly issued warrant. So that's really gets more to the heart of what we're trying to do here. And hopefully this tool will be an effective one, because we are having some problems with some of the properties in the town that we do need to abate.
Okay, if there's no questions, number 4 on my list is the holiday events. Because of COVID-19 and the increase of it, the city normally has a full-blown tree lighting at the green and programs and, you know, snacks and hot cocoa and everything, which now will probably be a problem with social distancing. So we're certainly going to decorate the tree. We are going to have a program, basically drive-by Santa at Fashini, and we're working on some programs for holiday specials, plus some networking through our social media created by our Hack Pack. But we will not be opening up the Hack Pack because unfortunately our numbers are growing, and I would love to say that I have full confidence that we will make it through 2020 holiday season with either Kwanzaa and a menorah for our Jewish families, but unfortunately all of our holiday events seem to going to be challenged, but more will come in the future and those issues will be posted and you will hear from me again on that. Next is the Prospect Ave bench approvals for New Jersey Transit. These benches, we're allowed to have 5 installed. They'll be set by bus stops. The 5 locations will be Prospect Ave, northbound at Central Ave, mid-block, 480 feet north. Prospect Ave, southbound at Berry, near side. We're gonna have, I'm stapled here, 1 second, please. We're going to have benches located Prospect Ave southbound at Gulf Place mid-block, 120 feet south. Prospect Ave southbound at Central Ave mid-block, and Prospect Ave southbound at Beach Street, far side. These are proposed bench installations for passengers who travel on New Jersey Transit, 162 Maywood to New York service. All benches must be submitted and approved by New Jersey Transit. So that will certainly help with our residents who use the bus and transport and have the ability to sit down and rest in between stops or waiting for the bus. And my final issue, because of time, will be best practices by Jim Magan, our CFO, that he and I have reviewed. Jim?
Yeah, very briefly, we're required to do a public discussion of the results of the best practices checklist. The checklist was submitted last week, which was on time. We scored a score of 22 out of a possible 24.5 points. That's a raw score of roughly about 90%. Way of perspective, last year, we scored 39 out of 46 points, which is a raw score of 85%. The best practices checklist will be up on the city's website. If it's not posted tomorrow, it'll be posted by Thursday at the latest. And as I said, it is a requirement of the program that we do a discussion at a public meeting. But in the interest of time, I'm just gonna leave it at that, okay?
Thank you, Jim. Is there any questions of the mayor and council? This would complete the city manager's report for November 9th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Need a motion to open to the public, please?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Here. Steve, did you want to announce anything?
Yes, thank you very much. Before we were in closed session prior to this meeting, we did discuss the Riesma litigation, which is up for a resolution tonight. And I believe that was the only case we specifically spoke about. So the rest of it was on other matters.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public who would like to speak, please give your name to the clerk. You will have 3 minutes.
Richard Salkin. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Real quickly, what's the status? A few months ago, I discussed perhaps putting up blinking pedestrian lights by the crosswalk on Prospect in the vicinity of the Sanzari property and the hospital. Is that going anywhere? Or?
Yeah, I'm working on it. We're actually, they're checking in to see if, because we did find out was that this, I guess the hospital put up that, the original lights that are there and responsible for the crosswalk.
Yeah.
So they're looking up some paperwork to see if they're actually responsible for those two little yellow pedestrian signs there. Me, I would just rather put these lights up on the sign.
I'm glad to hear you're still looking at it.
No, we have not dropped it.
Okay, because I drive on Atlantic and Prospect every day.
Yeah.
Look, there's going to be a tragedy, and I'm not laying it at your doorstep, John, just because you work there. But my goodness, the people just shoot out from the campus across the street. Something bad's going to happen. I don't know what you can do about it, but
I couldn't agree with you.
I would just ask the city attorney, with respect to the administrative search warrants, I'm a little disturbed about it because obviously there's been administrative searches in Hackensack going back forever. And, you know, the municipal court judge has issued warrants. And I have seen people held in contempt, which is really the primary manner of enforcement. A, I would stick with that. B, I would take a look at 2C29.1, obstruction, administration of law or other governmental function. It's a disorderly person's offense. Going in this direction, I don't care how many other municipalities have done it, may put you in a position of, well, if someone came to me and I wanted to defend them, I'd raise the preemption. And John, you remember preemptions. I remember you're very articulate when you were being pressured on the tobacco sales law, realizing it was really a statewide issue and municipalities should not individually undertake it. I think you run into the same kind of analysis potentially. I would just ask you to go slow, maybe put it off and make sure, you know, obviously the city attorney's opinion matters, that he's exhausted that aspect of it along with the municipal prosecutor. Thank you, that's all I have.
And I would just respond to that just briefly by saying, yes, I've consulted with a municipal prosecutor on this as well, and I fully agree that contempt is certainly a tool that can be used for, you know, for this sort of situation. You know, as I see it, it potentially is another tool in the arsenal, not the only one, and there are alternatives that can be pursued if this doesn't work. But certainly, the hope is that if you know, they have the ability, if they knock on a door, to say, hey, look, I'm writing you a ticket if you don't let me in due to this duly authorized warrant, that might lead somebody to comply more fully than, hey, we're going to go back to the municipal court and seek a contempt ruling.
They could sign a complaint for the obstruction of governmental function. Look, you know, it probably won't matter in the great scheme of things because the person you're going to is not going to have a JD after their name. But I'm just saying, you know, appropriately, it's a problem. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, look, and as I said, you know, this is something that, you know, we're looking at additional tools because right now compliance has proven challenging in some instances. So, but I agree your concerns are legitimate ones. And, you know, look, sometimes you pass ordinances and with the hope that they will work as you anticipate. And if not, you take another direction. And I think that's sort of the mindset.
You've looked at. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next person from the public who'd like to speak, please give your name to the clerk. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh Cohen.
Sir?
Hi, I live at 234 Clinton Place. I think many of you are familiar. I've been having trouble with sewage, city sewage backing up into my lateral. 3 times in total in August and September, we had sewage overflows into my basement and onto the corner of Clinton and Prospect. And I was curious if there was any plans on separating sewage in the north part of town or working on the corner of Clinton and Prospect.
I'll defer that to the manager.
The Suburban Engineering has looked at that. Obviously, they have come to your residence and investigated. So did our construction official and plumbing inspector. There was some issues of some of your own property and installation but more importantly, the city is addressing that. And on the grand scheme, the city will be making these separations. I just don't have the current plan in front of me, but thank you for the reminder, and we will get back to you.
Anything else, Mr. Cohen? That's it? Next person from the public, please. Give your name to
Phyllis Gordon. I'm at the Devonshire. I just wanted to thank Mr. Ehrenberg and the council and Mr. Dibb on behalf of the co-op and condo board for their efforts with regard to the benches on Prospect. We think it's going to be a wonderful addition, not only for the commuters, but for all those people who are walking up and back, getting their daily exercise or just relaxing along Prospect. So we really appreciate all your efforts on our behalf, because it's a project that we've been working on, and we're going to continue to develop more benches, in the future.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Next person from the audience, please. From the public, anybody else like to speak? Give your name to the clerk. Hearing none from the public, motion to close.
Offer.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Okay, I need a motion to close the executive session.
Offer.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Need a motion to close the council of the whole?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. And with that, we'll move right on to the next meeting. See everybody there.